All right, well, we might make a start. I mentioned to the small group of people who are in the room at the moment that it probably seems a bit odd that I'm using a microphone, given the fact that we're in very close proximity to people in the room. But welcome also to those people who have joined us online. Really nice to have all of you here. My name's Steve Corrie, and together with Christian, today we're going to be focusing on, I suppose, two different degrees, the first one being the Bachelor of Education Secondary, and the second one being Bachelor of Education Secondary Health and Physical Education. So fantastic to have people both online and in person joining us for today's session. So what we want to do is, I suppose, kickstart by acknowledging and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the lands upon which we meet. For those of us who are here at Flinders University, we are of course on Kaurna land. For those people joining us online, if they're anywhere across Australia, they possibly are on Kaurna land, but equally could be on other Indigenous nations, and we recognise that all of those areas, lands and sea, sovereignty was never ceded. So we'd like to acknowledge and pay respect to the elders of the lands who were, those who are, and those who one day will be. Now, we want to make today a bit interactive, so what we're going to ask you to do is initially, we've got a question I suppose we'd like to put to everyone, and that is simply, what is it that you're hoping to get from today's session? You know, we can probably presuppose what you're trying to get from this, but we want to make sure that we tailor things. So for those people who are online, this is a chance for you perhaps to put those details in. For those of you who are here, you can go onto the app if you would like to, but equally you could simply have a chat amongst people at your table group. So we'll just give people a minute or so to quickly chat about what it is that they're hoping to get from today's session.
Lots of conversations. We've got 3 people online, so you might just want to direct them towards the events here, I think.
Now, for those of you who are online at the moment, hopefully you've got access through the Events Air app to being able to answer those questions. So we've got Christian has just put up there that question for you to provide a response to. So when you get a chance, just let us know. What is it that you're hoping to get from today's session? All right, just while we're getting responses online, we're going to quickly scan the room. Can we just quickly ask you, what is it you're hoping to get?
I guess I want to learn more about land type and how that works.
This is a really good question, and we will most certainly be covering land type today, all right, because for a lot of people moving into education, this is a question that comes up. What does it involve? What do we need to do? What's the process? So yeah, we'll definitely cover that for you.
Yeah, just get a basic, just what to expect throughout this course, and kind of just meet some people we'll be working with and have a tour of the campus as well.
Very good. So certainly in terms of this session, we'll be able to give you, I suppose, that rundown. And then there's the opportunity to be doing tours and things today, which is, you know, this place is massive. You know, there's about 26,000 students, about 3,500 staff. And even for people who have worked here for a while, you get lost very, very easily and very, very quickly. So doing a tour makes a bit of sense. So I just want to check, Christian, have we got any others online that, any questions, things people want to check?
3 people online, but no, there's nothing coming through.
That's fine, and that opportunity exists there throughout, so feel free to respond to that if you're online and you've got particular things you want to focus on. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to look at degree-specific information, both for the Bachelor of Education Secondary, but also for Health and Physical Education. I'm going to introduce you to some key staff. We're going to sort of outline, I suppose, what we find here at Flinders leads to student success, because obviously that's the sort of thing that is really important for yourselves going forward, and then provide an opportunity for any questions that people might happen to have. So I suppose in kick-starting, I want to have a look at this, and then Christian will follow up in a moment, but with the secondary education degree, there's a few different components. And the first one is that you're actually going to select different academic majors. And this is where we get people across this rather large campus here at Bedford Park heading off and doing things like maths and science doing some of the social sciences and languages and so on. And everybody has those areas of expertise, and they're probably the things that they will find themselves very much involved in when they step into a secondary school. The second thing that you'll get involved in is general education topics. So this is where perhaps one of the things we would all come to a degree like this knowing is that things like relationships matter. The question becomes, however, how do you actually develop those relationships with some of your students? What are some of the strategies that work? What are some of the approaches perhaps that don't work quite so well? So some of these general education topics allow us to, I suppose, step away from just the curriculum areas of specialisation, but to look at those other elements that are really important for educators to be aware of. We look at things like Indigenous education, we look at things like inclusive education, we look at special education. We do also look very, very deeply at the curriculum itself, both for students who are at the middle years but also in the senior years, and you'll be involved in placement experiences. And what that involves is a placement experience in your second year of study, your third year of study, and your fourth year of study, and that sort of builds over time because the demands of your placement actually build as you're becoming more experienced yourselves. Now, at the end of today, we will actually have Jackie Thompson coming and joining us, and she is the person who is the placements director, and just for a few minutes at least, she will actually talk to what some of those placement experiences look like, and if you've got questions, that's a good time to ask her. So I'm going to pass over to Christian just now, because he's going to talk a little bit about how it works specifically with health and physical education.
Sure thing. Got five participants online now. So there are some similarities between the secondary education degree and the health and PE secondary degree. Within the health and PE degree specifically, we've got two options. The reason for that is when we go through the Australian curriculum up to year 10, health and PE, health and physical education is one learning area. So you're teaching all of that content as one learning area. Once we get to year 11 and 12, we're teaching in the SACE, which is the South Australian Certificate of Education, and health and physical education separate into two different subjects. We have health and wellbeing, and then we have physical education. So that means that you will have the choice to be either delivering health all the way to year 12, or you can deliver PE all the way to year 12. As a part of your minor sequence, you'll be able to teach both health and PE to year 10, and then you'll make one other choice, which means you'll choose an area or a minor pathway. It might be science, it might be maths, English, histories, all of those types of things. But I guess it is important for you to recognise that up until year 10, health and physical education is one learning area, and then it separates and splits for year 11 and 12 in those senior years. But in the same sort of way that Steve has spoken about, the general topics are almost identical between the two degrees. There's just the specialisation within health and physical education degree related to that in terms of content. The placements and the specialisations are going to be similar as well, but we make sure that when you're on placement, you're also linked and paired with an educator or a teacher from the health and physical education field, just to make sure you're getting that specialised information and support, rather than it being someone that doesn't necessarily have the same area of expertise within that. Do we have any questions? For those online, you can use the Events Air app, and you've got the live Q&A there as well. So feel free at any point to drop in a question. We'll be monitoring it on our moderator platform, so we can always pause and answer some questions from there. I'll hand it back to you, Steve.
Excellent, thanks Christian. I think what you're about to have a look at now, from my end, is probably the most important aspect of today, because you know, you step into university and I think we have a sense of what this is going to be like, but there are certain things that allow you to be successful, and the university, having been around for a while, having been able to look at the data, this is really important. So here's a couple of things here I want you to consider. If you're actually involved in full-time study, what that amounts to actually is 36 hours of commitment every week. And I think Christian and I probably are on the same page here, where we see students who are having considerable success, and it's those students who recognise the commitment that they're about to step into that do particularly well. And this is where we recognise that there are demands outside of university, but they need to be juggled and managed alongside this. So you will be part of different 4.5 unit topics, and for each one of those that you're part of, that amounts to 9 hours a week. So if you're doing a full-time load, 4 lots of 9 hours is 36 hours in a week. So some of you might have work of those of you in the room, you're both doing some part-time work at the moment, and you need to juggle those sort of demands. We recognise the need to be earning some money as we go, but it's a matter of making sure that the study remains, I suppose, the priority. You need to get some sleep, you need to exercise, you've probably got a social life, and all of those things become critically important. And I suppose the thing that I'm really pointing towards here is that it's about making decisions now for how you're actually going to proceed across what is essentially a 4-year journey. So perhaps something, whether you're online or here, really give this some thought, because we do know that it makes a difference. Actually, if you're trying to somehow juggle 50 hours of part-time work and do this, it actually doesn't work. So just keep that in mind. All right, in terms of study plans, some of you have probably had a look at some of this sort of detail before, but a full-time student is doing 4 years at 4 topics per semester. If you're part-time, you're doing 3 or less topics. Centrelink, if you're receiving any payments through Centrelink, they actually require a minimum of 3 topics for people to receive their student benefits. We do suggest when it comes to things like your study plans, and I'm going to show you an example in just a moment, we don't want you to attempt to create your own, because what we do see is on occasions, inadvertently, people might make a small mistake. So we do actually ask that our course advisors do that for you, and if you need any advice regarding that, simply go into that email address there, askflinders@flinders.edu.au. What happens is any questions that you've got, they basically get triaged from there. So they'll come into a central place and then they're pushed to the correct person who can assist you. And if you need any details around course rules, you can also find that on that link that we've got just there. When you go on to Flinders University and you're having a bit of a look at some of the course rules, you can have a look at what is required in your first year of study, in your second year, third year and fourth year and so on. And it gives you lots and lots of details, and you can just sort of open up each of those boxes and that provides you with some of the detail you need. This is an example here of a study plan. Now this one here is actually a study plan for somebody who is studying a Bachelor of Education Secondary. And if you have a look there, you'll see all of the yellow there. All of what you can see in yellow, that is one of the majors that a person is actually participating in. Everything that is in sort of that pinky purple colour is their second major. But then we also pick up on lots of these other things that we talked about before, like general education topics, curriculum specialisation, and your placement experiences. So all of those things form your 4 years of study.
Can I jump in and just clarify? I'll just build on that idea of study plan. So for those in the room and those online, your study plan is really critical for a couple of reasons. If you make a mistake and don't enrol in the right topic that's listed on your study plan, it can have a roll-on effect, meaning that there might be a topic in your first year that needs to be completed in order to do a topic in the second year. It's called a prerequisite. If you get that mixed up, it means that it could delay your topics overall, can delay your degree, or you might have to overload in order to get back up to speed. So if you're ever unsure about this, make sure you do reach out to that Ask Flinders option. That's really important, because if you're confused, just get some clarity, ask the questions, and I guess that's a part of your orientation and your learning. Just ask as many questions as you need to feel comfortable and confident that you're on the right path, because if things do fall out of sequence, you can make it back up. It is possible, but we want to try and catch that before it happens and give you the best advice possible to begin with.
That's really good advice, because you do see it across a number of students where, for whatever reason, something happens, but then there's a compounding effect sometimes from some of this, and if we can avoid that, I suppose that's the aim. So this is the question that was asked in the room before around Landtight, and one of the things here is that all people who step into being an educator here in Australia, there is now a requirement to complete your Landtight. And we can see on there that basically it's around completing a fairly general literacy and numeracy test. And for those students who are actually, like everybody here and online, if you're commencing in 2022, you actually must pass both components of Landtight by the midpoint of your course. So that does give you a little bit of time. We do sort of suggest to people to try and get that done sooner rather than later, if you possibly can. I suppose that next part that we've got there is less important to people here, but just know that Landtight is something that needs to be completed by all teachers, and it's simply so that you do have, I suppose, the basic literacy and numeracy that's required, regardless of what it is that you're actually teaching when you step into a school. Anything further you want to add on that, Christian?
Yeah, not heaps. Just that you can have multiple attempts, so it's not you do it once and then you've got no support. The benefit of doing it early in your degree is that then if there was something that didn't go to plan, you can identify that and work with the team at the university to have support to pass. It's really important that you seek that support again, be proactive, ask questions, because there are systems and support processes in place to help you to be successful. But unless you're seeking those out, it can be challenging for us to identify that you need it and help you to get there.
I suppose one of the things that comes up with Landtight is that sometimes people wonder, do we actually sort of conduct that here? And the quick answer to that is no. So it is something that you need to be able to do yourself and do it independently. So there's various sort of supports that we provide, but ultimately it's up to the student to make sure that they do some of the work required. There is a fee attached to doing this. It's not exorbitant, but it's worth knowing that there is a fee attached. I want to show you just a few of the staff. Now, sometimes when you see photos on a screen and you see people but you've never met them before, it doesn't mean a whole lot actually. But I suppose what I want to be able to point out to you is that the people that you're looking at here actually represent, I suppose, in education, some of the most experienced and some of the most influential educators that we have, not just in South Australia, but also across Australia. And you're very, very fortunate, actually, in terms of some of the people who you're going to have the opportunity to work with. And these are people who have had lots and lots of experience working in schools, lots of experience in areas of research, lots of experience in places like this as well, and working with pre-service teachers. And I suppose they all have the same goal. And their goal is simply to make sure that you are prepared as best you possibly can be for the role that you're about to perform. And if there's one thing we know about education, it is a really demanding profession. It's a demanding profession in terms of your time. It's demanding in terms of, I suppose, the work that you're doing with students, with fellow staff and with parents. It's an incredibly rewarding profession. I think Christian and I are both involved in this many years after we began because we absolutely love it. And lots of the people you can see on the screen there are in the same boat. So their goal is simply to make sure you're as well prepared for the profession you're stepping into as possible. Now, one of the things that happens, I think, when you first start is there's all these questions that you wonder about. I still remember the very first day that I went to university and I went to completely the wrong lecture theatre. I discovered after I got lost that I was nowhere near where I was meant to be. And there's all of these people who you can contact at different stages if you're wondering about something. So we've got a couple of examples on here, but if you wanted to change your course, so on occasions, you might get partway through something and something grabs your attention and you're thinking, actually, I think I might look at a slight alteration here. Well, what do? You go to Ask Flinders in this sort of case, and they will, I suppose, have your request then responded to by course advisors. Sometimes it will be an academic staff member who you will have a conversation with. You might need your study plan drawn up. Again, that goes through Ask Flinders and it goes through to a course advisor. You might at times find yourself having some challenges within a particular topic. Well, who do you talk to? Initially have the conversation with the tutor, but then probably the topic coordinator. There are times where life gets in the way of some of your studies. So what happens if you're actually finding numerous topics to be challenging? Well, that's probably when you speak to a course coordinator like myself or Christian actually, and just have the conversation, and then we can work with you to sort of chart that next path on the course. You might need an access plan. If you do, we have health and counselling here who can assist you with that. Or you might want to get involved in the myriad of different things that we've got here through the Flinders University Student Association, and their reach is incredibly wide across a whole range of different sports, but a whole range of other activities as well. So one of the things that I found when I first started here was trying to get my head around all the acronyms. So people will talk about, oh, have you looked at the SAM? And when you first start here, you think, what do you mean, have I looked at the SAM? Well, that stands for the Statement of Assessment Method. So when you step into a particular topic and there might be 3 different assessment tasks, the thing that you need to have a look at actually is the SAM, because it will tell you when this is due. It'll tell you what percentage weighting a particular assignment has, and it will provide you a few other really important details in there. So I've just got a couple of those there. Things like Flow, Flinders Learning Online, that's something that you'll be using all the time in all of the different topics that you're involved in. Your FAN, when you go to log in, is your Flinders authentication name. CEP, SW, is simply the college that you're part of. So education is part of the College of Education, Psychology and Social Work. So we have sort of 3 key areas as part of one college. The TC, sometimes people will say, have you spoken to the TC? And that's simply your topic coordinator. Or they might say, have you spoken to the CC, which is the course coordinator. Any others that you'd add into there, Christian?
No more to confuse you. There's a lot. So the thing with Flinders, I think they like acronyms. So
like a lot of big organisations, yes, we get inundated with acronyms, and it doesn't take too long to get your head around the main ones. All right, so this is Flinders Learning Online. This is an example of what we were talking about before. Have those of you in the room, have you been on and had a bit of a look at some of this? Very good. This is where things like your weekly tasks, just knowing what it is that you're required to do for week 1. What do I need to read? You know, what are the assignments? Sometimes you'll find that this is where the lectures are actually housed. So we're transitioning actually. You know, we look at the last couple of years and all of the lectures have been very much online. At the moment, we've got some of those lectures will remain actually online, but for some topics, it is a case of moving back towards face-to-face. So you simply need to make sure that you're reading very, very diligently what's on Flinders Learn Online to know exactly what the requirements are for your particular topic. If you need an extension at some stage for an assignment, this is the place that you go to request that extension. So sometimes when people start, they'll try and email, you know, maybe their tutor, but the tutors are limited actually in what they can do there. It needs to be the topic coordinator who ultimately approves a request for an extension, and this is the sort of place that you do it. All right, this next little part here, one of the things that we recognise here is that there's all these different elements actually of student success. I suppose when I think of any aspect of my own life and I look at that top left-hand corner there and it says a sense of connectedness, anywhere, any time that I've felt a sense of connectedness where I feel welcome and part of things, I think I've probably tended to do better. So we're just going to quickly cover a couple of the things that you might consider around these elements of student success here, but these are things that you can actually do. So in terms of developing connectedness, There are so many different clubs and societies here. You might even choose to do things like join the gym that we've got here. You might link in with other class members because often they will share some of the interests that you also have, and that will create that sense of belonging. Make sure you get to know your lecturers. Make sure you get to know your tutors. Beyond them being academic staff, get to know them also as people. Keep an eye out for different movie nights and guest lectures and things like that, and that's just a way of being able to link in. But the next one is this idea of developing a sense of capability. And what we want people to become is the most proficient educator they can possibly be. So when you receive assignment feedback, one of the first things that people want to do is they want to see their grade. We understand that. But what we really encourage you to do as well is make sure you access the feedback, because it's actually the feedback that is actually going to take you to that sort of next stage on your journey. And if any of that feedback that comes back you're unsure of, ask questions and make sure that you're sort of clarifying exactly what it is that is required of you. We do have a student learning centre here, and that is a way in which you can access support. So one of the areas I see this is particularly around referencing. So people step into a university, they're doing really, really well, but the thing that sometimes they find challenging at the start is how do I actually reference my work correctly? Well, the Student Learning Centre can assist you in some of those areas. Now, sometimes it might be that you have a look at some of the, I suppose, pre-prepared videos that they've got or some of the different documents. But if you need to, you can also sit down with people one-on-one and access support. There's also things like counselling assistance if required. We might, Christian, I might go to the next one, but get you to talk to this one.
Sure. So like we've mentioned, this is all about you being the best possible student you can be and being successful. Being successful will mean something different to each person. However, we want you to be successful in terms of your pathway through your degree, as a person, as a learner, as a future teacher. So it's different personas we want to pay attention to. This idea of being resourceful, we want to make sure that you have an awareness that there are lots of resources available to you. But this does depend on you knowing where to find them, making sure that you go and utilise them and find them, but then also asking questions of your topic coordinators, of your tutors. And if you can't find something, let us know, because that's great feedback for us as course coordinators to go, hey, I couldn't find this, I was really confused. Then we can actually try and action that and do something differently from there. But it's also about being resourceful in terms of your degree specifically and starting to build, your virtual toolkit, building a network so that when you enter the profession, you're entering with some resources that aid you to be successful as a professional beyond a pre-service teacher. So keep that in mind and access what you can, but if you have challenges, know that there are lots of people that you can reach out to. Ask Flinders, Student Learning Support Services, your tutor, your topic coordinator, your course coordinator. We're all here to help you as students. And also the notion of being purposeful. We want to make sure that you're able to set some goals for yourself. You've taken a big step mid-year, coming in, starting a degree, but that's the first part. We want to make sure that you maintain that purpose throughout your degree. Why am I here? Where am I going? Is what we really want to pay attention to. There are course advisors that can help with that. Steve and I, as course coordinators, can definitely support you in that as well. Jackie Thompson, our professional experience extraordinaire, has also walked in. She might be able to help you with some of the industry connection as well. So we want to make sure that we've got a purpose, we know where we're going, but if you get a little bit lost, get confused, ask questions again. I don't think I can say enough. We want you to ask questions and we want you to be supported throughout the process to be successful. And then at the end, this is what we want you to be. These are the Flinders graduate qualities that are listed, and these are some of the things that you can flesh out more and you'll learn about throughout the degree, but we certainly want you to be able to tick off and say, I am all of these things and more as I enter my future career as an educator. Anything else here, particularly Steve? I think we might just flick over
to Jackie.
Do you want to go some questions or straight to Jackie?
I think we might go to Jackie
Cool.
first. We
will hand over to Jackie Thompson. She is our professional experience lead coordinator. She's a very helpful resource for you and for us as course coordinators. So it is over to you, Jackie.
Are we being recorded
We are,
and filmed?
that's There are
So I have to stand here.
Three participants are online at the moment.
Oh, hello to those people online and to the only 2 people sitting in the room. So I'm Jackie Thompson, as introduced. I'm the Director of Professional Experience, and you're starting an undergraduate degree. So that means across your degree, you'll do 3 placements. Okay, we prepare you for these placements. In your second year, you'll do a placement of 15 days. In your third year, you'll do a placement of 25 days. And in your final year, when you get to that one, you'll be able to do a minimum 40 days, but we also have additional options. So you might be able to go on an internship or an extended placement. And pre-COVID, we had some overseas placements as well. So we always say that teaching can take you anywhere, and your placements are designed to, in some ways, kind of allow you to pursue your interests. We have schools across all sectors, so government, Catholic, independent, all around South Australia and interstate. So students can go on their placements in a wide variety of settings. So we prepare you. You're not just going to be going out into a school. There'll be preparation for that beforehand. You'll get to meet other pre-service teachers that are a little bit further along the journey than you. You'll get to meet people who are in schools to support you, like site coordinators and perhaps some of your mentor teachers. And we have an academic team and a professional team of placement officers who are all here to support you at the university. So welcome to teaching. It's a very exciting journey. And along the way, you get to put your theory that you learn into practice with support when you go into various schools. So I'll see you at some point in the next kind of year or so, I suppose. All the best. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Jackie. And
Have you got any questions about that?
yeah, absolutely. Well, while Jackie's here, I'm not sure if either of you have questions that you might have, and I'll give this back to you so that you can answer any questions, and I'll just see if there's any online.
Okay. The way you were nodding when I was speaking, I'm thinking, oh, it's probably totally overwhelming, all this information at this point. But do you have any questions? No? Have you spent much time yourself in schools, other than as a student?
Yeah, I've been working in a school for the last couple of years.
Have you?
Yeah.
In OSH or as an SSO?
I did ESO stuff, but I work in sport, do like sports admin.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Well, a lot of our students do pick up employment, of course, as SSOs or ESOs in schools, in OSH programs, in a whole range of different ways. And that's experience that kind of really sets you up well and benefits you when you go into a bit different role as a pre-service teacher. Yeah. Okay. Any online questions? No? This is a bit of an easy gig. Thanks, everyone.
You were clearly, you were just so clear, I think, Jackie, and that's what's meant there's been no questions. You know, it's interesting you mentioned that you work in a school at the moment, and I think from my experience, those people who are involved in schools and understand how the flow of a school day works, some of the challenges that exist, they position themselves incredibly well. Because everything that you're hearing, the things that you're reading, you've got this lens to sort of consider all of this through. So for anyone who's online, if you do have half a chance to do some work in schools, and let's face it, schools are screaming out right now for extra people to be involved. If you've got a choice between, like my son who works at Coles, because he's 19, but he doesn't do this degree. If he was doing this degree, I would be saying to him, try and get work in a school, because everything that we talk about pedagogically, like the approaches you take to teaching, you'll actually have a way of considering these things, you know, in a very real context. All right, a couple of things as we finish up. We're obviously in orientation week at the moment. We're very much at the start of it, and it continues throughout the week. So this is a chance, obviously, for people to join different sessions. Today we have, at the end of this, for both of you in the room, you can come down, just down here it is. It's a garden in the Law Court area where there's a free lunch. So go down, and Christian, who you just saw, is going to be playing his guitar down there. So that'll be fun. I've never heard him play. I'm sure he's very, very good. Next week we have something as well which I think is important, which is called Connect Week. So it is the first week obviously of university, but it sort of extends this orientation period so that you can start to actually look at some of the things that perhaps are of interest to you, but also you might see as a challenge for you, and you can lock into different things throughout Connect Week. So just look out on the Flinders website for some of the things that you could be involved in there. All right, so just to finish off today, an opportunity for any questions that people might have. So for both of you here, is there anything that is sort of standing out at the moment that you're wondering about?
I think the other thing with me is with the lectures, how do we know, will it say on Flow if it's online or in person?
This is a really good question. So for those of you online, the question was, how do we know if the lecture is actually going to be delivered in person or if it's a pre-recorded session or there's no requirement to be there? It will simply indicate on the Flow page. The other thing is that usually about once every week, the topic coordinator will put out an announcement to all the students. Now, the way you receive that is just by way of an email. It just comes straight to your inbox. So make sure you're checking your emails. I mean, you've probably got friends who some check their emails, some don't. And it becomes a problem actually at uni when people don't check their university emails because they'll miss important pieces of information. So yeah, have a look on Flow. It'll normally indicate what you need to do there. The other thing is once you actually get into, say, your first week and you're part of tutorials, it'll very much, a lot of those messages will come out in tutorials as well. All right. My preference is when we have the opportunity to deliver lectures in person, but obviously in recent times that just hasn't been possible, unfortunately. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was wondering what's the best way to get involved at schools when we don't have any qualifications?
Yeah, so the question is how do you get involved in schools when you haven't got qualifications? And it depends what level, I suppose, you're looking to be involved at that school. So at the moment, can I ask, have you got qualifications in your area? Yep. So what qualifications have you got?
I've got a certificate 3 in sport and rec and a certificate 4 in education support.
So some of these qualifications are really, really important, but they may not always take a long time to get, unlike a 4-year university degree. So have a look at what some of those different roles are that you're interested in. Feel free to speak to people like myself or Christian and we can talk you through some of what you might need. But the other thing is if you step into a school and say, I'm interested in positions that are coming up, they will very much be able to say, this is what you need to do in order to be part of working here. That's a really good question. Let me just quickly check online. I don't think we've got any questions that have come up. So if there are questions that sort of come up post this session, feel free to contact myself or Christian. So our details are at the start of this slide and feel free to send us an email and we can certainly help you out. But thank you to those of you who have come. I know it's a bit weird. I feel a bit odd speaking via a microphone when you're 1 metre away. But thank you very much for being part of the session and we look forward to seeing you here in only a week's time. Welcome.